Chapter 1. The Auction and the Unexpected Prize. The sprawling interstellar auction house was a chaotic, bustling microcosm of the galaxy's darker corners and its hopeful fringes, a place where the forgotten and the forsaken converged beneath soaring ceilings and dim, flickering lights. Rows upon rows of battered ships, each with a story lost in rust and silence, lined the massive hangar, their hulls scarred by battle or neglect, their interiors sagging under the weight of abandoned dreams. The air thrummed with the cacophony of voices bargaining in dozens of languages, the metallic clang of machinery being inspected, and the distant roar of starships arriving and departing beyond reinforced glass walls. Here, on the fringe of the Coalition's controlled space, fortunes were made and lost on the turn of a gavel, and the sharp eyes of scavengers who could see value where others saw only scrap. Lucas Trent navigated the sea of shadows and steel with a mixture of caution and excitement. To the casual observer, he was just another mechanic with dirt-streaked hands and worn clothing, a man whose life had been spent chasing the echoes of engines long silenced. But Lucas had something few others possessed, a keen intuition for the forgotten, a gift for glimpsing potential beneath layers of decay. His gaze flickered over the assembled vessels, each one a promise or a curse, until it settled on one ship that seemed to call to him with a quiet desperation. A small freighter, wedged between two hulking cruisers like a wounded animal. The vessel bore the name Siren's Call, its letters faded and half chipped away, a ghost of a name for a ghost ship. The hull was battered, a patchwork of scars and temporary repairs, paint peeling to reveal the dull, gray metal beneath. Its engines, while intact, had long been silent, and the airlock seals showed signs of age and damage. Official records tagged the Siren's Call as a refurbishable cargo ship with a mysterious past, and rumors whispered in dark corners suggested it might carry secrets worth more than its weight in credits. But Lucas cared little for rumors. What mattered was what he could make of it. The auction began with the usual fanfare, booming voices, flashing holo ads highlighting ships' supposed specs, and a crowd of bidders wielding credits and influence like weapons. Pirates with cybernetic implants whispered in dark alcoves. Corporate drones tapped encrypted messages into their wrists, and veteran scavengers shouted bids over the din. Lucas felt the weight of their eyes, a mixture of curiosity and suspicion, as the auctioneer's mechanical arm rose and the gavel prepared to fall. When the bidding opened on the Siren's Call, the price climbed quickly. The shadowy figures who had circled the ship like vultures seemed intent on driving the cost higher, their motivations unclear but unmistakably serious. Lucas, however, held fast. With every raise, he saw his chance slipping away, but he could not let the prize go. Finally, with a last breath and a quick calculation of his limited credits, he placed his bid, and the gavel slammed down to seal the deal. The crowd buzzed with surprise. A mere mechanic had outbid seasoned mercenaries and corporate interests alike. With the ship now his, Lucas felt a thrill of victory tempered by the sobering reality of what lay ahead. The Siren's Call was his responsibility, a challenge to be met with sweat and steel. As the crowd dispersed, he approached the vessel's airlock, the hiss of decompression breaking the heavy silence. Inside, the ship was a cavernous tomb of neglect. Dust-blanketed control panels, the faint hum of emergency power barely stirring the stale air. Rust crawled across exposed conduits, and the floor plates creaked underfoot like the groan of an ancient beast awakening from a long slumber. Lucas set to work immediately, running diagnostics on the ship's systems, patching power conduits, and attempting to coax the engines back to life. The task was daunting. The Siren's Call was more than a mechanical puzzle. It was a relic of a forgotten time, and every panel and circuit whispered stories Lucas was determined to uncover. Yet, even as he explored the ship's bowels, he was unaware of the most extraordinary secret the Siren's Call carried hidden within its depths. In a sealed compartment nearly forgotten by time, an alien mother and child clung to survival, their fate bound inexplicably to the human who had just claimed their refuge. Lucas's hands trembled not from exhaustion, but from the electric thrill of discovery as he stumbled upon the sealed hatch deep within the cargo hold. The airlock's lock was ancient, encrusted with the corrosion of years, but it yielded to his careful manipulations. Beyond the door lay a dim, cramped chamber bathed in the soft glow of bioluminescent flora, a living sanctuary hidden within the cold metal shell of the ship. The scent was strange, a mingling of something earthy and metallic, unlike anything Lucas had ever encountered. And there, huddled amidst makeshift bedding and strange alien artifacts, were two beings, a mother and her child, both unlike any species known to the Coalition. The mother's eyes reflected a mixture of fear and relief as she gazed at Lucas, her body slender and graceful but marked with scars of hardship. The child clung to her side, a fragile creature with luminous skin and large, curious eyes that studied Lucas with cautious wonder. Neither spoke, yet the silent communication between them was profound, a desperate plea for help and a tentative hope that this human might be the key to their survival. Lucas felt the weight of that moment settle deep in his chest. What had begun as a simple purchase, a scrap ship to be repaired and sold, had become something infinitely more complex. The Siren's Call was not just a vessel. It was a refuge, a prison, and a cradle for lives hidden away from a galaxy that might destroy them if discovered. And Lucas Trent, the mechanic who thought he was just buying a ship, was suddenly thrust into a story that would change not only his destiny but the fate of an alien mother and child he barely understood. Lucas stepped cautiously deeper into the Siren's Call, each footfall echoing softly against metal walls coated in grime and years of neglect. The air was thick with the scent of stale coolant, and something else unearthly, almost organic aroma that did not belong in a starship's cold corridors. His fingers brushed over cracked control panels and faded insignia, relics of a crew long vanished, their stories buried beneath layers of dust and silence. Yet, despite the decay, the ship seemed alive, a faint hum vibrating through its core, as if it still remembered the energy of its past voyages. He activated the emergency lighting system, casting pools of amber light that flickered uncertainly along the hallways. The power systems groaned under the strain, flickering as ancient circuits woke from their slumber. Screens blinked to life for brief moments before fading, leaving cryptic fragments of star charts, cargo manifests, and cryptic logs frozen in time. Lucas's trained eyes scanned the data, piecing together clues from the ghostly remnants of this vessel's history, a freighter that had once navigated the outer rims, carrying goods and secrets between forgotten colonies. As he moved toward the rear cargo bay, the source of that strange organic scent grew stronger, twisting his gut with a mixture of curiosity and unease. The cargo doors were sealed tight, reinforced with emergency locks that seemed out of place on a ship of this age. Lucas knelt beside the control panel, fingers dancing over the worn keys as he bypassed security protocols one painstaking step at a time. Sweat beaded on his forehead, partly from the effort, partly from a rising anticipation he couldn't explain. The seals hissed open, revealing a dimly lit chamber far smaller than expected for a cargo hold. Instead of crates or machinery, the space was cluttered with strange, bioluminescent plants pulsating softly against the metal walls, casting an eerie glow that danced across the shapes huddled in the corner. At first, Lucas thought they might be survivors, other humans marooned or stowaways, but as his eyes adjusted, the unmistakable outlines of two beings came into focus. The larger figure, a slender female form with elongated limbs and skin that shimmered with an iridescent sheen, was curled protectively around a small child, whose wide eyes glowed softly in the low light. Neither moved, their gazes locked on Lucas with a mixture of fear, curiosity, and cautious hope. The child's tiny hand reached out, trembling slightly, as if uncertain whether the stranger was friend or foe. Lucas's heart pounded fiercely, caught between wonder and responsibility. Here, in the forgotten belly of a forsaken ship, he had stumbled upon something beyond any salvage or repair job, a living story, fragile and profound. Questions flooded his mind. Who were they? How had they come to be hidden aboard this vessel? Were they refugees, prisoners, or something else entirely? And most pressing of all, what would he do now? In that suspended moment, Lucas understood that the Siren's Call was no longer just a ship to be fixed and sold. It was a sanctuary, a secret, and perhaps a beginning. Chapter 2. Beneath the Surface of Secrets. The days that followed the discovery inside the Siren's Call unfolded like a slow unraveling of mysteries deeply buried beneath layers of fear, hope, and desperate survival. Lucas Trent, the mechanic-turned-guardian, found himself tethered not just to a derelict ship, but to two lives that transcended every calculation he'd ever made about scrap value, repairs, or profit margins. The alien mother, whom he later learned to call Myral, and her child, Jara, were as enigmatic as they were vulnerable, their presence on the ship a secret wound from a past Lucas could barely fathom. At first, communication was an impossible puzzle. Myral's language was a complex symphony of subtle gestures, melodic inflections, and bioluminescent pulses emanating from delicate skin patches that shifted color with her emotions. Jara, though young, mirrored much of this intricate expression but combined it with childlike curiosity and tentative trust. Lucas, limited by his own humanity and grounded in the universal desperation to understand and protect, began the painstaking process of bridging worlds. One glance, one touch, one shared breath at a time. The ship itself seemed to embrace their fragile alliance, its cold metallic bones warming in the presence of life. Lucas converted sections of the cargo bay into a living space, softening the harsh geometry with salvaged fabrics and lighting that mimicked the gentle glow of Myral's natural bioluminescence. The ship's failing environmental systems required constant attention, and the mechanisms groaned like old bones, but Lucas worked tirelessly to coax life into circuits long dormant. Every repair, every patch of light restored, was a small act of defiance against the darkness of isolation. Myral and Jara's story unfolded slowly, fragment by fragment, woven together through shared experience and the language of survival. They were refugees from a shattered world, torn apart by war and corporate greed far beyond the Coalition's reach. Their people, a race of bioengineered beings designed for adaptability and resilience, had been hunted, their colonies obliterated in a brutal campaign to seize control of their unique biological technology. The Siren's Call had been their escape vessel, a hidden ark meant to carry them to safety, but it had been intercepted, disabled, and abandoned in the void until Lucas's unexpected arrival. The weight of that knowledge pressed heavily on Lucas's shoulders. Here, in the cold vacuum of space and the unforgiving depths of the Siren's Call, was a living testament to the consequences of interstellar politics and the quiet brutality that underpinned the galaxy's order. Lucas was no diplomat, no soldier. He was a mechanic thrust into a role he never sought, but could not refuse. Protecting Myral and Jara was no longer a choice. It was a mission written in the very marrow of his being. Each day blurred into the next as Lucas balanced repairs with caregiving, learning to navigate the delicate needs of his new companions. Myral's biology was a marvel, a living network of glowing veins and cellular structures that defied human science. Jara, with skin that shimmered like liquid crystal and eyes that reflected the cosmos itself, was a child of wonder and hope amidst ruins. Lucas's hands, trained to wield tools and machines, now cradled fragile limbs and soothed frightened hearts. The ship hummed with renewed life, not just from engines or power cores, but from the bond that was growing within its steel womb. Yet outside the fragile sanctuary, dangers lurked with relentless persistence. The Siren's Call was no secret in the galaxy's shadowed corners. Corporate hunters, mercenaries, and unknown enemies scoured the star lanes for signs of the lost bioengineers and their technology. Lucas knew time was short. Every moment he delayed was a moment closer to confrontation, to discovery, to the destruction that had already swallowed so much. He fortified the ship as best he could, repurposing weapon systems from forgotten bays and patching shields with scrap that groaned under stress. But no amount of technology could guard against the cold uncertainty that gnawed at Lucas's heart, the fear that no matter how fiercely he fought, the galaxy would never accept the strange family he had found aboard this forgotten ship. Amidst this tension, Lucas found moments of surprising grace. He watched Jara laugh as she learned to float in zero gravity, her crystalline skin refracting light in dazzling patterns. Myral taught him fragments of her language, her voice a soothing melody that resonated in the small quarters. Together, they formed an imperfect family, a sanctuary forged not by blood, but by necessity and courage. Lucas often pondered how fate had brought him here. What began as a simple auction, a bid for a broken ship, had become the catalyst for a profound journey into the heart of alien life and the brutal politics of survival. He was no longer a mechanic with grease-stained hands. He was a protector, a witness, and a reluctant hero navigating the vast unknown. As the siren's call sailed deeper into the void, Lucas knew the coming days would test every ounce of his resolve. But for now, amidst the flickering lights and the quiet breathing of his new family, he allowed himself a rare moment of hope that together, they might find a future beyond the shadows of their past. Chapter 3: Shadows on the Horizon. The siren's call drifted through the dark corridors of space like a ghost, its battered hull cutting a lonely silhouette against the tapestry of distant stars. Inside, Lucas Trent moved with a quiet purpose, each step echoing softly through the ship's worn corridors that were slowly being transformed by his touch and the growing presence of Myril and Jara. Though the ship had once been a forgotten relic, abandoned to decay and silence, it now hummed with life, a fragile ecosystem of human determination and alien resilience intertwined beneath layers of metal and memory. Yet the peace was a fragile veneer, for beyond the safety of the ship's walls, dangers gathered like shadows on the horizon. Weeks had passed since Lucas had first discovered Myril and Jara hiding in the cargo hold, and the initial shock of that discovery had given way to a complex rhythm of daily survival, learning, and quiet companionship. Myril, with her glowing skin that shifted colors like a living tapestry, had begun to open up in subtle ways. Her melodic voice, once a cryptic mystery, became a language of soft words and songs that filled the chambers with warmth. Jara, the child whose luminous eyes mirrored the cosmos itself, grew in confidence, her laughter a fragile light in the vast darkness of space. Together, they formed an unlikely family, one not forged by blood, but by shared hope and the relentless will to endure. Yet, even as the ship regained its strength, Lucas could feel the weight of unseen eyes tracking their every movement. The Coalition's vast networks of surveillance and control were unyielding, and rumors of the bioengineered refugees had spread like wildfire among mercenary guilds and corporate hunters. The technology Myril's people possessed was a prize too valuable to ignore, a key to power that could tip the delicate balance of galactic politics. Lucas knew that each quiet moment of peace was borrowed, a fleeting respite before the inevitable storm. He poured every ounce of skill and ingenuity into reinforcing the siren's call. The ship's ancient engines were coaxed back to life with meticulous care, the power core humming steadily as it absorbed energy from distant stars through battered collectors. Weapon systems, salvaged from forgotten compartments, were cleaned and tested, ready to defend the fragile sanctuary should enemies close in. Shields flickered uncertainly, but held firm under his constant adjustments. The corridors were lined with improvised sensors, scanning for threats with a vigilance born from necessity. Every repair was a prayer, every system a lifeline in the void. But the true challenge was not just the ship or the looming dangers in space. It was the delicate balance within the small family Lucas had become part of. Myril's health was fragile, her biology unlike anything human doctors could treat, and Jara's rapid growth brought both wonder and worry. The child's unique physiology meant that even the smallest exposure to cosmic radiation or toxic particles could be fatal. Lucas's days were spent navigating medical scans, experimental treatments, and the language of alien anatomy, a puzzle that stretched his mind beyond anything he had ever known. Despite the mounting pressures, Lucas found solace in small moments. A shared meal under the dim glow of the ship's galley, Jara's curious fingers tracing the lines of a star map, Myril's serene presence as she sang ancient lullabies that echoed through the quiet halls. These moments forged a bond deeper than words, a testament to the resilience of life and the unspoken promise that they would survive together, no matter the cost. Yet, outside the fragile bubble of the siren's call, threats converged. One fateful night, as the ship drifted near a dense nebula known as the Veil of Tears, a warning blinked to life on the navigation console, an unmarked vessel approaching at high speed. The ship's silhouette was unfamiliar, sleek and angular, its weapon arrays clearly visible even in the nebula's shadow. Lucas's heart raced. The message was clear. They had been found. The approaching vessel was a privateer's ship, notorious for hunting lost technology and capturing fugitives for the highest bidder. Its captain was rumored to be ruthless, a mercenary whose name was whispered in fear across sectors. Lucas quickly roused Myril and Jara, the urgency of the moment stripping away the fragile calm they had built. Preparations were swift but tense, weapons charged, shields raised, escape protocols reviewed. As the privateer's ship closed in, the siren's call was forced into a desperate maneuver, weaving through the dense gases of the nebula in a dangerous dance of survival. The cold void was pierced by bursts of plasma fire, and alarms blared as the battered ship took damage. Lucas fought at the helm, balancing the ship's fragile systems against the onslaught, his mind racing to protect the family that had become his world. In the heart of the chaos, Myril and Jara huddled in the protected compartment, their luminous skin flickering with fear and determination. Lucas's thoughts surged between the frantic commands and the silent vow he had made to keep them safe, no matter what darkness awaited beyond the stars. The battle was brutal, a clash of wills and technology in the unforgiving void. But within that crucible, Lucas discovered a strength he never knew he possessed. The siren's call, once a forgotten relic, became a symbol of resilience, a beacon of hope forged in fire and shadow. And as the enemy ship finally disengaged, beaten back by the humans' ingenuity and the alien mother's fierce protective will, Lucas knew their journey was far from over. The galaxy was vast, and its dangers many, but so too was the stubborn spark of life burning bright within the battered ship. Lucas Trent, the mechanic who thought he was just buying a vessel, had become a guardian of life and legacy, navigating the endless dark with a fierce, unyielding heart. Chapter 4, Beyond the Stars, A New Dawn. The siren's call ifted through the vast emptiness of space, its battered hull a fragile sanctuary for the fragile family it now housed. The nebula's mist had receded, leaving a tapestry of stars stretched like jewels across an endless void. For Lucas Trent, Myril, and Jara, the journey had transformed from a desperate flight into a fragile quest for survival and, eventually, hope. The battles, the escapes, and the constant vigilance had forged bonds far stronger than blood bonds born from shared hardship and unwavering trust. Inside the ship's core, Lucas sat at the control deck, eyes scanning holographic maps as the ship charted a course toward the uncharted edges of Coalition space, places where surveillance was thin and the grip of power less suffocating. Every decision was weighed with the knowledge that discovery meant danger, that enemies lurked among the stars, and that Myril's people, once rulers of their own domain, were now fugitives hunted for their unique biology and technology. Yet within that shadow loomed a persistent light, the hope that beyond the known, they could find refuge, a home rebuilt from the ashes of loss. Myril rested in the ship's infirmary, her body weakened from months of travel and constant stress. The bioluminescent patches on her skin pulsed rhythmically, a sign of her slowly stabilizing condition, but the toll of their fugitive life was etched into her every breath. Jara, now more vibrant and curious than ever, floated nearby, her crystalline eyes absorbing the flickering consoles and faint hums of the ship's systems. The child's laughter, rare and precious, was a balm against the ever-present tension, a reminder that life, despite all odds, found a way to endure. Lucas often found himself lost in thought during the long hours of solitude. He was a mechanic by trade, a man who had once dreamed of simple things, fixing engines, earning a modest living, maybe owning a ship one day. But fate had thrust upon him a destiny far greater and far more complex. He was no longer just a buyer or a repairman. He was a guardian, a protector of lives and legacies that transcended species and star systems. The weight of that responsibility settled heavily on his shoulders, but it was a burden he bore willingly. The political landscape of the galaxy was a tapestry of power, corruption, and fragile alliances. The Coalition, vast and bureaucratic, had its own designs on Myril's people and their technology visions of weapons, medical marvels, and biological enhancements that could tip the scales of power irrevocably. Rogue factions and mercenaries saw only profit, ready to capture or destroy anything that threatened their dominion. And amid it all, Lucas and his small family were caught in a web of intrigue and danger that extended far beyond the confines of the Siren's Call. One evening, as the ship drifted near a secluded system rumored to harbor sympathetic enclaves, Lucas convened with Myril in the ship's common area. The room was softly lit by the ship's repaired luminescence systems, casting warm glows on faces marked by struggle, yet shining with hope. Myril's voice, melodic and ancient, carried stories of a homeland, lost worlds of vast jungles, crystalline cities, and starfarers who had once thrived in harmony with their biological marvels. She spoke of betrayal and exile, of wars waged in shadows, and of a future yet unwritten. Lucas listened intently, the weight of her words deepening his resolve. He shared tales of Earth and humanity's endless strive of battles fought not just in space, but in hearts and minds, of survival against overwhelming odds, and of the quiet courage that bound people together. In those moments, barriers of species and culture melted away, replaced by the universal language of hope and determination. Plans began to take shape, a vision for a new beginning. Lucas proposed seeking out the enclaves scattered beyond coalition reach, places where Myril's people might find sanctuary and rebuild their shattered civilization. The journey would be perilous, fraught with risks from hostile forces and the unforgiving void, but it was a path toward freedom and healing. Together, they prepared, reinforcing the ship's systems, rationing supplies, and mapping routes through star charts littered with danger and promise. The days turned into weeks as the Siren's Call navigated the treacherous routes of space, avoiding patrols and black markets, slipping through gravitational eddies and nebular veils. The family's bond grew stronger with every shared hardship, the child's laughter blossoming into songs, Myril's strength slowly returning, and Lucas's determination hardening like tempered steel. They became not just survivors, but pioneers, carving a future where none seemed possible. Then, one fateful day, the sensors picked up a faint signal, a beacon pulsing with patterns that matched those Myril described as a sign of their enclaves. Hearts pounding with cautious hope, the Siren's Call altered course, guided by the promise of a new home. The star system that emerged from the void was breathtaking, lush, vibrant, and teeming with life, a sanctuary hidden from the eyes of empire and mercenaries alike. As they descended through the atmosphere, Lucas gazed out at the sprawling landscapes, the endless forests, and crystalline lakes shimmering under alien suns. Myril and Jera's faces lit with wonder and tears, the first real hope in years. The ship's engines settled to a gentle hum as they touched down on a platform nestled within a thriving settlement, a community built from resilience and hope, a beacon for the lost and the forgotten. The journey had been long and fraught with peril, but at last, they had arrived. In this new dawn, Lucas saw not just the survival of an alien mother and child, but the birth of a new chapter, one where different worlds could come together, where courage and compassion could bridge galaxies, and where even the most unlikely heroes could find their place among the stars. And as the twin suns set on the horizon, casting golden light over the Siren's Call, Lucas Trent knew his story was just beginning. Not as a mechanic who bought a broken ship, but as a guardian of hope, a protector of life, and a witness to the endless possibility of the cosmos. The Siren's Call had carried them through darkness, across star systems rife with danger and despair, to a place where hope still bloomed. Lucas Trent stood on the bridge, gazing out at the vibrant alien world sprawling beneath them, a tapestry of iridescent forests, crystal-clear lakes, and mountains that caught the light of twin suns in a dazzling display of color. The settlement below was unlike anything he had seen before. A delicate mosaic of organic architecture blended seamlessly into the natural environment, where bioluminescent plants and softly glowing structures pulsed with quiet life. This sanctuary was a testament to resilience, a haven for those who had escaped the claws of tyranny and violence that haunted the wider galaxy. Beside him, Myril's eyes shimmered with tears of relief and awe, while Jara reached out with curious fingers, captivated by the swirling colors and shapes. The child's luminous skin reflected the kaleidoscope of the world around them, a living mirror of wonder and innocence rekindled after so much hardship. Lucas's heart swelled with a fierce protectiveness as he watched them, knowing that every sacrifice, every sleepless night, had led them here. Touching down on a gently curving landing platform, the siren's call settled with a soft hum that reverberated through the ship's core. The hatch hissed open, and the trio stepped into the warm embrace of this new world. They were greeted by figures both alien and familiar, refugees and settlers, scientists and warriors, all bound by a shared dream of rebuilding and survival. Myral's people, long thought scattered and destroyed, had found a place to heal and thrive, and Lucas was welcomed not as an outsider, but as family. Days turned into weeks as Lucas integrated into the community, his skills as a mechanic invaluable in repairing and maintaining the ships and technology that kept the settlement connected to the stars. Myral and Jara blossomed in this environment of safety and hope, their laughter echoing through the biodomes and communal spaces. The once fractured family had become a beacon of strength and renewal, proof that even in the harshest reaches of space, life could find a way to endure and flourish. Yet Lucas never forgot the journey that had brought them here, the battles fought in shadowed voids, the sacrifices made in silence, and the unspoken courage that bound them together. He reflected often on the moment he had thought he was merely buying a ship, unaware that he would uncover a story of survival and love that transcended the boundaries of species and stars. The siren's call had become more than metal and circuits. It was a vessel of hope, carrying the legacy of a mother and child who had trusted a stranger to protect their future. In quiet moments beneath alien skies, Lucas would walk beside Myral and Jara, their hands entwined, and gaze upward at the vast cosmos and infinite canvas of possibility. The galaxy was wide and wild, filled with dangers and wonders beyond imagining. But here, on this fragile world, they had carved out a sanctuary. They had rewritten their destinies. As the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the landscape, Lucas felt a profound peace settle within him. The journey was far from over, but the hardest battles had been fought and won. They were survivors, pioneers, and above all, family. And as night fell, stars glittering like diamonds across the velvet sky, Lucas Trent knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together beyond the stars, beyond fear, and into a new dawn.